going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to have a hard time this morning because we're being recorded and we have to stay at our mics, and we really like to roam. And so if you see us looking restless, you'll know why. There may be some stragglers coming in, but we wanted to go ahead and get started and get all of us talking and interacting. I'm Mary Beth Lake, and I'm with the American Council on Education. I'm the Director of College and University Partnerships. My colleagues will do quick introductions of themselves, and then we'll get going on an overview and the agenda and get you all into some interaction. And I think after they introduce themselves, we'll get you all to introduce yourselves as well. So just quick introductions.
My name is Cherry K. Smith, and I work with Ivy Tech Community College System. I work with academic policy and assessment at our system office.
Good morning, I'm Ann Johnson. I'm the Dean of Business and Social Sciences at Inver Hills Community College in Minnesota. It's a pleasure to be in Georgia. I've enjoyed the last couple of days here. And part of my responsibility is working with adult learners and our online programming. Welcome.
And I see one of our participants he's already being such a good participant. He's saying if you're sitting at a table by yourself, move over with us. So that's great. So let's start the table over here on this side, and get names and the college and your position. Just real quick introduction. Since we're a small group, it'd be nice to know who everybody is.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Cheyenne Huckabee. I'm with Valdosta State University at the Kansas City campus, submarine base, and I am a new academic advisor there. I've only been in the position about 2 months, but I was working part-time in financial aid and VA for 4 years, and now I'm getting excited about trying to figure this role out.
Great.
My name is Christy Orr from Batesville State College, and I'm the adult learner in Military College.
Valerie McFarlane, Director of Military and Adult Education at Garden State College.
Pete Hoffman, I'm even newer. I started working on 1 July at the Armstrong Atlantic. I'll be the Director of the Liberty Center right outside the gate of Fort Street.
Great.
Sorry, Brady, I'm the Associate Vice President for the Civil University.
Kelly Bond, George Southern, Special Projects Coordinator.
Tamara Orkishon, political science faculty member and also director of adult learning initiatives at Georgia.
I'm Ann Howard. I'm a counselor at Gordon College and also military outreach coordinator.
I'm Vesta Whistler, and I'm at Valdosta State University. I've been there for 6 years, and I direct the online bachelor completion option in the adult career ed department. And I worked at Ivy Tech for 17 years.
And I'm Charles Johnson at Dalton State College. I'm Dean for the School of Technology.
I'm Alfred Essa with Desire to Learn.
Great. It's good to have everybody. And as you see, we've got the agenda up here. What we're going to do is kind of a three-parter, and there's some interaction in between. One of the things we'll first do is have Cherry Kay and Ann talk about policies and practices, PLA policies and practices at their respective institutions. We know that we have a range of adult learners coming into institutions. We know that they have all different kinds of learning experiences, and we know that they need a range of options in order to document and to show what they know. So it's anywhere from ACE credit recommendations from for the military and for the corporate side, to national exams, to in-house training evaluations, to certifications, to portfolio. So policy and practice do matter. It matters because we have such diverse groups of adult learners that we have all those options open. So one of the things we want to do is just show you some examples with the prior learning policies and practices. And then we want to get into what the tools are. It's really hard in terms of all that we already do to have the tools and the maps and the templates for doing it so that you don't have to start from scratch. So it's, to have the consortium like we have in Georgia and have some of the other statewide initiatives that are going on in Indiana as well as Minnesota, there's lots to share, not just among institutions within a state or a community, but across states. So the Georgia, the Adult Learning Consortium is really allowing us to do that. So along with me from DC, we brought in a couple of other states today, so we can share practices and we can learn from each other. So, you know, one of the tools for us is, in looking at adult learners, are the maps. I talk a lot about maps and mentors, that students need a map and a mentor, or a champion or a guide. And the map really helps folks see, as we know, you know, what I'm coming in with, you know, whether I'm in the military, what are my possibilities as far as other prior learning options, and then what I have left to do. So my colleagues have really been working with different populations on developing those maps, as well as, and some of you may be familiar with some of the crosswalks that Ivy Tech has put together as well. So that'll be part 2, and then we'll make you talk to each other and come up with ideas. I know that's really a drag, and you probably, you know, maybe haven't had enough coffee to do it. It's at the end of a conference, but we're going to make you do it again one more time. So that's kind of part 2. And then part 3, we're really getting into that faculty engagement and development part. And really, it's faculty and it's advisors as well, and other you know, constituencies and colleagues on the college campus that we really want to engage, but faculty first. I mean, we know that they need to own the process, they need to develop it, they need to be part of it and understand it. And so we feel like a big part of what we need to do is really help them understand the process of prior learning assessment. If it's something they're not familiar with, that there needs to be some peer-to-peer collaboration and development. You know, so that's part of what we have to do. We have to have the tools or the products to work with, but we also have to understand the process. So my 2 colleagues will be talking about what they do at their respective institutions overall with prior learning assessment, to bring in, you know, to bring more faculty in, to get them engaged, to help them develop the prior learning assessment options as well. And then, you know, again, we'll be getting you to work on thinking about, you know, what could you do as far as, you know, what are your next steps? What are your institutional plans in terms of developing those tools, but then also building greater faculty engagement? What are the things that you're already doing that are working, and how can you build on that? And then you know, for those of you, everybody in here knows Mary Ellen, right? So, you know, Mary Ellen always wants takeaways on these things. So, you know, we've got the chart paper, you know, and so and once you put together your action plans, you know, kind of look at your challenges and where you want to go, particularly with faculty and particularly with the process and the tools, then we want to come together as a group and look at the takeaways. And I think takeaways for your individual institution, but also for the Adult Learning Consortium as well. I mean, how do you move forward with the ways that you share each other, with the kinds of policies that you want to put across you know, the system of Georgia? So that's quick. And so you know, I never know how much people know about ACE, so I'm always torn between what do I say and what do I not say. If you've heard this before, I apologize. If I don't tell you something you need to know, I apologize for that too. But I'm going to give you a quick overview of ACE, and then we'll get right into the policies and practices as well. So most of you probably know that ACE is about 100 years old. Did you know that? Did you know how we started? Okay, I get to tell you something you don't know. That's great, because I know you're going to tell me something I don't know. But anyway, we started we're coming up on the 100th anniversary, and we really started out of veterans. Reason for, you know, veterans furthering their education, coming out of World War I, and the desire in the higher ed community at that time to help further their education, but then also recognize what they already had. And so, you know, I think first efforts really were toward just giving the credit, you know, and then people stepped back and thought, oh, wait a minute, we need to do a little bit more than give them credit because they've been in the military. And so out of that, the early desire, the initial desire to really work with veterans in education grew the kinds of tests that we're familiar with today, like the GED, CLEP. You know, those tests really came out of those initial efforts. And so, you know, fast forward to after World War II, I think probably most of you know that's really when we became a a bridge between the Department of Defense and higher ed community in terms of doing military review or credit recommendation reviews of military training. And then in the 70s, we did that for military occupations as well. So how many of you have those hideously colored green hardback books on your shelf still from the military? I think it's probably 1954. You know, we used to do these really big books with thousands of pages with all the course credit recommendations for military training, and then later on for military occupations. And we do this on the what we call the corporate side as well. And that's what we started that in the mid-70s as well, about the same time that we started reviewing in the military the occupations. So we've got, and I'll just fast forward a bit because I'll show you some examples of, just some quick examples of course displays on both the military and civilian side as well as the transcripts. But we feel so strongly about the faculty component because that's key to what to our review process. Right now we probably have about 1,000 faculty reviewers, and so when we go out on a review, we have people that represent if we're going out to review something in health that's healthcare related, then those faculty or subject matter experts in those fields, they have at least 5 years of experience. And if they're faculty sitting in here, I'm recruiting you right now because we're always looking for reviewers, especially in areas like bioethics, cyber security, foreign languages, that sort of thing. So you should go, if you haven't done this before and you're still teaching, you're teaching, you're current, you've taught for at least 5 years, you ought to get on our website and look at the evaluator application form. Or, you know, for that reluctant faculty member on your campus that you really want to get into prior learning assessment, that's a good way to do that. And again, our faculty reviewers come from all sorts of institutions, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, for-profit, non-profit. We do about 60 reviews a year. We have, and on the military side, we do about 50. Well, there we go. And how many people use the military guide online? And we're getting friendlier. We're going to be friendlier than we've been. We've got probably right now about 15,000 course displays. So that's an example that gives you a layout. You know, what used to be in those big books now is online. And so you get a course description, you get course outcomes, you get the credit recommendations, say 3 credit hours in political science at lower division. So you've got that display. You can actually you can go to the guide and you can search by occupation, you can search by course, you can search by service member, you can search by course number or military number if you've got that. But we're really working on making that a much friendlier search so that I know we've been asked a lot. In fact, we've been asked a lot by people in Georgia, could we not just search by subject area? You know, like political science, because, and I'll give you one example. One person said to me, you know, I was in the military and I know how to do these searches, I know what I'm looking for, but if I want my faculty who haven't been in the military to, you know, to buy in and do this and really see how these credit recommendations might match up to curriculum, you guys have got to do a better job. You got to make your search tool a bit friendlier. So we're working on that, just to let you know. And probably everybody in this room has seen an example of a SMART transcript. One of the nice, and this is Sailor and Marine, one of the nice things to know about these transcripts is, now how many people know there's going to be a big change with a SMART and ARTS transcript? All right, you want to tell us what it is so you can get everybody else excited about it?
I believe, I just learned this yesterday, what you're talking about is the Army, which is the ART.
ART.
Is going to be switching or aligning with SMART.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and so it's going to be a much friendlier, if those of you that know the SMART and ARTS transcript, how many of you like the SMART transcript a whole lot better? ARTS is kind of difficult to read. for a lot of reasons. And so it'll be coming under the same operation, so operations will be smoother. And plus, we'll begin to get eventually Coast Guard. Maybe not so much Air Force because they have their own school and it's accredited, but some Air Force eventually. And what's nice is to think about a more integrated transcript. And we have, and you probably oh, I'm sorry, was there a question? Yeah, I'm sorry.
I just have a question. With that new combined transcript,
Mhm.
would a soldier now go to the ARTS website to request his transcript, or will they need to go to the SMART website to request that?
Well, it's going to be interesting how they align it and how they put it on the website, but it is going to be under Smart Operations, and I don't know the detail about what they're going to call themselves or how they're going to make it clear to folks about where they go. So I think it's going to be interesting transition for all of us. And in fact, we fully, well, let's just say last summer when ARTS moved their offices, we got a lot of phone calls. And so at our resource center to help soldiers and veterans with trying to get, get their transcripts through the service branch, through the ART. So that's a good question, and that's one thing we'll have to keep everybody posted about too, and hopefully the respective service branches will help do that as well. Every year, the service branches totally put out probably almost 400,000 transcripts, and I think now, I don't know if I said this before, we've got about 15,000 courses online and about another 3,200 occupations online with course descriptions. On the credit side of the house, or the corporate side of the house, we have probably over the years since the 70s, we have reviewed 600 organizations, everywhere from employers like McDonald's and Starbucks and Jiffy Lube to government agencies like FAA to professional associations like teaching, what is it? It's Professional Teaching Standards Board, and then the American Bankers Association, so professional associations like that. The latest group to kind of come on board and be offering things that we have reviewed and evaluated, and again, it's the same kind of faculty teams that we use on the military side, are online education vendors like Pearson, Straighterline, College Network. So those are the newest entries into the field, and a lot of those companies are offering general education courses that we have reviewed. And we have, since this side of the house is younger and just started in the 70s, this side of the house is not as well known as the military, which has been around for 6 decades as far as the credit recommendations. So we probably each year, since the 70s, maybe 63,000 transcripts. We have our own transcript service. Students can get their transcripts through us. We would love to eventually have a comprehensive transcript with anything and everything a student has ever done, but we're probably light years away from that. And then this is, again, on the civilian side, a sample of a guide online, so you could search the credit recommendations. We are working on this side of the house too with data to make that a much friendlier search as well, because we have a lot of inactive organizations where, say, student did something in the 70s, that organization's no longer active with us, so we've got a search tool. I've got a link for that where you could search by course, by exam, by organization. So if you did something back in the 70s, you could find that. We'd have a record for it. You could order a transcript. You could use it at your institution. I want to stop just for a couple of minutes and see if there are any questions. I know that there are some people who have been through the sessions this week and already know a bit about ACE. So, I won't belabor the points about ACE, but if you have questions, feel free to ask them now or to ask them later. Are there any questions or comments before we move on to prior learning policies and practices? Okay, that's what we'll do, and I'm going to go change the slides, and you're going to sort of be the mistress of ceremony while I go do that.
Yes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ivy Tech while we're switching the slides. Ivy Tech is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a statewide system. It is the community college system in the state of Indiana. And we have about 30 campuses or additional locations across the state that award degrees. And we're accredited as a single institution. And we're accredited by the Higher Learning Commission of the North Central Association of Colleges and Schools. And you might think about what a single accreditation means to an institution. For us, it means we have a single president, we have a single board of trustees, we have common curriculum. We have, for the business curriculum, for example, just about all of our campuses will offer a degree program in business, and those requirements are the same. We have common course outlines of record. The Business 101 class that a student in Gary, Indiana has the same outcomes as the student who takes Business 101 in Sellersburg. So common curriculum. Each campus or each region, we do have 14 administrative regions, and there are program chairs in all of those regions that come together a couple of times a year to work through curriculum issues and other things that might have to, other business that might have to take place with regard to the curriculum. Ivy Tech has been, I think, a PLA-friendly institution for many years. Our prior learning assessment policies were created many years before I came into this position, and were based on the CALE standards, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning. They have standards or criteria that they suggest for prior learning assessment, and Ivy Tech took those to heart in creating the policies that we have. And today I'm going to be sharing with you some very very simple policies. I'm going to tell you this is how we do things, and I welcome your questions about that. Based on the CALE policies, kind of in a nutshell, these are some of the things that we expect of students before we'll award a credit for prior learning. First of all, they have to be an Ivy Tech student and enrolled in pursuing an Ivy Tech program. We want to ensure that any prior learning or any credit that we award for prior learning doesn't duplicate some course that they already have, so they're not double dipping. The achievement has to be documented, and we maintain this documentation in the student files. And then the credit that's awarded needs to apply to their program. We wouldn't award a lot of credit that's not going to be applicable to their actual goals. And then we do expect, though, that they meet our entry requirements and our any prerequisites that may be associated with certain credit, and sometimes that credit may be something that they are able to document through prior learning experience. Sometimes they may need to take a class. And then, of course, in order to be awarded a program, they do need a minimum of 15 credit hours taken at Ivy Tech and not awarded through PLA or through transfer. And just recently, our accrediting body has identified a standard that is going to change that for us maybe just a little bit. What their criteria says is that students must take 15 of their final 30 credit hours at the institution. And again, we are a community college, so 60 credit hours is what it takes to get an associate degree. So we'll be watching to ensure that 15 of the final 30 hours happens at Ivy Tech and not through PLA or transfer. There are several ways at Ivy Tech that a student can demonstrate their prior learning. We award credit demonstrated through examinations. We have a credit for certification and training crosswalk, and then of course the prior learning portfolio. Now the first two items here, the credit by examination and credit for certification and training, those are particularly important to Ivy Tech because we rely very, very heavily on ACE credit recommendations. And our faculty, those curriculum groups that I mentioned earlier, will review those credit recommendations, and they'll look and see if those credit recommendations match up to courses that are within their curriculum. And when they do, and when those curriculum committees agree by majority that they do match, then those credit recommendations for that particular experience and the course in the curriculum that it matches up to goes on a crosswalk that is statewide in nature. It is, she's going to give you an example of a few pages. Actually, the current one is kind of clunky. It's about 18 pages, I think, or more. Yeah, we're trying to work on clunky, but currently it's clunky. You have a few pages just as an example. You can go out to the website and take a look at the entire thing, just like our students can go to the website, take a look at it, as well as our faculty. But because this evaluation or this is done prior to the student bringing in this credit recommendation, a lot of times this is taken care of with the registrar. When the student brings in a score report from CLEP that has the minimum score range on it, the registrar goes ahead and awards that credit, and the faculty don't have to review the entire credit recommendation again because they've already done that. This became kind of a necessity for us because of the fact that we are a statewide system. We have 5,000 faculty scattered across 37,000 square miles, and we needed something like this for consistency. So we have several crosswalks. Oops, I'll come back to that.
There's your back right there.
Well, I'll show you shortly. We needed this for consistency, so we have a couple of different ones. Credit by examination, I'll go back and talk a little bit about that. We have, that is the way that Ivy Tech has identified to demonstrate general education competencies. And I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. But we also have a crosswalk that has ACE credit recommendations on it for corporate training. That crosswalk also includes several both national and state certifications and licensures that our faculty have taken a look at, the body of knowledge that those particular tests cover, and have matched it to the courses in their curriculum. And again, once that the appropriate curriculum committee has identified those, it goes on the crosswalk, and it has already been evaluated. The student is not charged anything additional for that. Now, and we try to get as many things on this crosswalk as possible because it just makes it's a more efficient way of handling it. When we have a group that evaluates it, then that means it doesn't have to be evaluated again every time a student brings that in. So we try to get as many things on the crosswalk as possible. However, we can't get everything. This has been one of our challenges with the military occupations. Is there are just so many of them that we almost have to look at those on a case-by-case basis. And then there are always students Oh, I'm sorry.
So ACE has reviewed all of the things in the left column. There's an ACE credit recommendation.
Almost all of them. There are some certifications and licensures in that left column that they may not have reviewed, that our faculty reviewed on their own. But in terms of I think I gave you one of the first pages, the ABA, American Banking Association, yes, there is a ACE credit recommendation for that.
And the computer information technology?
The Microsoft Office, yes, certifications and those kinds of things, yes. So that particular crosswalk has some combinations. It has both ACE recommendations and also some other things that they may not have reviewed yet, but that our faculty did. Yes.
And then once it's on the transcript, it's really transparent. It shows as the course from your institution. It's not marked as any specially assessed course.
Well, it is marked, the grade that the student gets is not an A, B, C, or F. It is a V for verified competency. So they get the credit hours when someone looks at the transcript and sees a V, you know, the receiving institution is going to know that, oh, that's unusual, you know. So they would know that it was verified competency. The prior learning portfolio is our last resort, just because it has to be done on a case-by-case basis. But our faculty do participate in that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Again, we do differentiate in the way that we award general education credit and technical credit. With Gen Ed, we do currently expect that the student will demonstrate those with some type of nationally recognized exam. Currently, we're looking at CLEP and DSST, International Baccalaureate Advanced Placement, those kinds of things. And we do have I didn't bring copies of that crosswalk, but we have a crosswalk that's somewhat consistent with our four-year partners in the state of Indiana. Recently, our Commission on Higher Ed coordinated a process. We already had our crosswalk ready, but they coordinated a process so that all Indiana public institutions communicate their awards for advanced placement. And this mentions that the verified competency, the V, is what goes on their transcript. So a four-year partner would know the difference. Now, for our technical credit, there are obviously some DSST and some CLEP tests that apply to those, but we also have some Ivy Tech statewide tests that our faculty have put together, test outs for specific courses. And a student could request one that might not already be available. And again, they work that out with the faculty, if their faculty advisor, as to whether or not a challenge exam might be feasible in that particular situation. Again, we do work very closely with ACE recommendations, and we do expect proper documentation, such as the ACE transcript, such as official score reports, and current licensures in the example that you pointed out. So current licensures or certifications. And then again, crosswalked courses do appear as Vs. You will be getting a copy, I think, of our PowerPoint presentation today, so you'll have those URLs so that you can go out and take a look at our crosswalks. Again, they're on the public website, so students see those as well as our faculty use them, and registrars use them. Again, the portfolio process is maybe even a little clunkier than the crosswalks that I just mentioned. We do have some very specific policies and procedures about how to go about demonstrating competency through the portfolio. We have a coordinator at each campus, a PLA coordinator, which kind of facilitates the process. Sometimes this is an advisor. Sometimes it is a faculty member who is just that student's point of contact, so that they can talk to the student a little bit about what their past experiences have been. They can talk to them about the kinds of programs that they're interested in pursuing, and they then connect them with a faculty advisor that will get more specific into the kinds of courses that they might be able to demonstrate competency for. And then the PLA evaluator is the faculty member or the subject matter expert that's going to be looking at that portfolio to ensure that the student did in fact meet those course objectives. And then, of course, the registrar has a role in it all to record on the transcript.
Are the coordinators and the evaluators usually different?
They sometimes are, yes, because the coordinator is just that student's first point of contact. And if that person is the dean of the business department, that person might also be the evaluator for any business-related portfolios. But sometimes it's a professional advisor who doesn't have maybe the subject matter expertise that we're going to need in an evaluator. Good question. Any other questions?
Do those coordinators get special training? Is there any sort of preparation that they receive in order to direct the students to the appropriate resources?
I do. I get to provide training to our regional, anyone in the regions that works with PLA. Now, to be quite honest with you, we have so much turnover. It's sometimes that I can't keep up. I don't mean we have a lot of turnover. Actually, we don't have a lot of turnover, but the responsibilities sometimes shift, and so I try to keep up with that. And if not a formal training session, then I connect with the folks that are PLA coordinators. We have a statewide group that meets periodically, and then of course we try to use as much technology as we can over a statewide system.
So what's your position?
I'm at the system office, Assistant Vice President for Academic Policy and Assessment, and as a part of that have been responsible for PLA for the past 5 years. So actually this slide came from some of the training that I've done with some of our PLA coordinators, as well as our program chairs. Our program chairs and advisors, we've got an advising session training going on for advisors today back in Indiana that somebody else is talking with them today about PLA. But with our program chairs, I try to encourage them to make sure that the portfolio doesn't become a hoop jumping exercise. It's not at all. The portfolio, we want to make sure that they are looking at the learning rather than just the portfolio itself and how well it's designed. Does it apply to the course objectives? Can you measure the level of performance based on the kinds of documentation that they're providing? One example of how we are applying our policies is a project that Mary Beth and I have been working on with McDonald's. McDonald's has a set of individuals that have been through quite a bit of training through the McDonald's Corporation, training that has been reviewed by ACE, and there are credit recommendations for that training. We are working with McDonald's to train those students and, actually place them into a couple of associate degree programs. And we'll be looking a little later at some examples of how we apply any PLA to an associate degree program. And our working not only with the curriculum, but with the McDonald's employees, will be providing them, of course, additional support services. The programs that we're working with McDonald's on are online programs. So we will have students from across the country that are pursuing an associate in business degree, and will be applying their previous training from McDonald's to their associate degree in business. And also providing them, of course, the orientation, any supplemental instruction, and those kinds of peer support and those kinds of things. And I will pass it over to my colleague Ann to tell you how it's done at Inver Hills.
I'm changing slides, and so do you have questions for Cherry Kay?
Yes, ma'am.
What are the average number of credits that you award a typical student going down this route?
The last time we pulled certificates, which I haven't gotten this past years, but prior to that, it was about 9, and that was the average. However, that's not the mode. Most students get only 3, maybe 6. I think it's skewed to about 9 because there are several. We have some completion programs. For example, we might have a certified or licensed respiratory therapist, and so they are working in the field. When they come to us, all they want to do is take their general education, because they have demonstrated that they have the technical skill in respiratory therapy. So they are getting a much larger number of credit hours awarded than the typical student. So again, the mode is really more like 3, though I think the average is 9.
Well, good morning again, and thank you for coming to our session. I'm going to first introduce Inver Hills by talking to you a little bit about some of our best practices that we have in place for adult learners. Inver Hills actually is a community college that's part of 32 other institutions within the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities system. Inver Hills has actually been a leader with adult programming in the system. So we're well known for our Adult Success Accelerated program, or our ASAP program as we fondly refer to it. This program is specifically designed for students that are 25 years and older and have substantial work-life military experience. And with this program, we have offered accelerated courses in 8-week sessions on campus, on Saturdays, at one of our 7 off-site locations, as well as online. So we believe we really do give a lot of opportunities for adult learners to obtain their credit at our college. We also have an individualized professional studies degree, or an IPS degree. We were one of the leading institutions in the development of the IPS degree. And this degree basically gives a student the opportunity to design a degree that fits best with their personal and professional needs. So it's designed to help employers as well with their employees and getting them ready to move forward in the corporation. The IPS degree is a 2-year associate in science degree. And the caveat for this degree is it cannot be a replica of a degree that we already have on our books. So it truly is a unique degree that a student is seeking. In order for a student to do the IPS degree, they typically will do our career planning and assessment course, which is a 3-credit course designed for adult learners to learn about higher education policy and procedure, develop educational goals, career plan, and also explore 4-year institutions and the whole concept of prior learning assessment.
You said that you will allow the students to come in and develop their own curriculum?
Mm-hmm.
How does the faculty in the university, the college adjust to that? I mean, suppose they came
The IPS degree does have to be approved by a faculty member, so if a majority of the credits were to come out of the business department, if a student chose to do a business communication degree.
So they're really guided.
They are very guided, yes. They can't just do. Yeah, actually what happens is they work with the faculty member who coordinates our prior learning assessment and has been very involved in the ASAP program. She reviews that degree, and the faculty then from the discipline in which a majority of the credits are from will review it, and then I review it as the administrator responsible. So it does go through quite a review process. We also have a very robust prior learning assessment process at our college. We have what I call our in-house PLA process. Students have opportunities to do prior learning assessment, which is done on a course-by-course basis. So they are showing that they know the same course outcomes and objectives in a traditional seated course as in a PLA. So if a student came in and said, I've been in corporate for 20 years, I've managed a family and other things, likely they would have opportunity to do interpersonal communication. They're showing us that they understand that the same concepts that a student would show a faculty in a specific course. So we have our in-house PLA process. We do CLEP exam, and then we also have developed a relationship with Goodwill Easter Seals in Minnesota, in that we have looked at their call center training program and crosswalked that to our Principles of Customer Service course. And I'm very excited about that program. It's new this year. In fact, we are involved in a grant with Goodwill Easter Seals, some adult basic education centers, and some other community colleges. And just submitted a second grant with Goodwill, and we'll learn about that in June, so keep your fingers crossed. It's a real exciting opportunity because Goodwill also works a lot with veterans and military personnel. Inver Hills has also been a leader in learning communities. In the state of Minnesota, we are working a lot with integrative learning and learning communities. And this is kind of like a cohort model. So in our adult program, we actually have a learning community on Saturdays that contains our career planning and assessment class and a general education class. So it really gives students the opportunity to integrate the curriculum and work with a couple of different faculty. We have learned from our data that learning communities does help with retention and completion of our students. I believe part of it is because they feel more of a connection to one another in the college through this particular model. In online programming, we have 25% of our credits online, and we're one of the institutions that came out of the chute first with online programming. So believe we are a leader in that area within the system. And we do offer our 2-year degree entirely online, the AA degree, and several other associate degrees online. And also believe that it's very important to have quality online programs, so are migrating from an in-house peer review process to Quality Matters, which I believe will in the long run really help promote our programming to adult learners and veterans. So to talk a little bit about policy, and being here the last couple of days, it sounds like the state of Georgia is really grappling with some policy issues. As I've reviewed the policies in the state of Minnesota, I do believe that we're pretty liberal with our policies for the most part, with credit for prior learning. We have a broad policy that basically states what different assessments will be recognized within our system, and those range from nationally recognized assessments such as CLEP, AP, IB, to locally developed exams, to portfolio reviews, and we do have some four-year institutions who do portfolio reviews, and then competency demonstrations, such as the prior learning assessment process that Inver Hills has on the course-by-course competency. Our policies have no age stipulations, so a student does not need to be 25 and older to do prior learning assessment. If they come in and have worked with an advisor or faculty and they believe that a student could obtain credit through some prior work they've done, then absolutely we will work with them. I believe especially in working with military and veterans, many of the men and women have life experience beyond some of us, and they may be only 21 or 22, and we are certainly going to work with them on that prior learning assessment. The MNSCU system is directed by Minnesota statute that basically tells us, or says, to recognize and award credits for courses that meet the ACE recommendations. And this statute has been very helpful for me as I've worked with faculty in accepting what ACE has recommended as we've tried to crosswalk specific military occupation specialties over to our courses and degree programs. We also have a procedure on the Minnesota transfer curriculum. And again, there's links to the website. I didn't want to pull them up for you this morning. Should you be interested in reviewing those, please go out to our site. But the state of Minnesota has what we call our Minnesota transfer curriculum. So if a student completes 40 credits of that MNTC, those credits will transfer in entirety to a receiving system, university, or college. So even if a student has done prior learning assessment as part of that in MNTC, it is going to transfer for them. We also do have part of that policy notes that if a student completes courses in a specific goal area, there are actually 9 goal areas in the Minnesota transfer curriculum, that if I were to finish goal 5 in its entirety, that too would transfer. And again, if I've done some of my credits through prior learning assessment in that goal area, that will transfer to the college or university. And then also that particular procedure does address credit for prior learning and basically reiterates what I just said, and that the Minnesota transfer requirements are fulfilled, then the credits should be transferred to the college or university. There is a statement in the policy that says local colleges and universities can develop their own policy, and so we have had some colleges and universities who aren't quite as liberal in accepting prior learning assessment as Inver Hills has been. We have no limitation on the number of credits that a student can earn through prior learning assessment at our institution, as long as they meet the residency requirements.
How about that?
Yeah, we're very proud of that fact. I also believe that talking a little bit about how we transcript, as Cherry Kay mentioned, is important because we've actually had a lot of conversation over the past week about transcripting prior learning assessment credits. But we do have to distinguish on a transcript how a credit has been obtained, especially if it's transcripted in that term. So for our prior learning assessment in-house process, if a student were to do Communication 1100 and obtain credit for that, it's denoted on the transcript as 7100. So all of our prior learning assessment courses are noted with the course number 7000. And the student, it's transcripted as a pass, no credit. If a student were to need a grade to show their employer for reimbursement, there is a faculty evaluation form that the faculty fills out that says the competencies the students met, the fact that they passed, and then also tells what the letter grade is and that's the documentation the student then can give to their employer for reimbursement purposes. That documentation is also key for us in paying faculty. We will not pay them for doing an evaluation until after that evaluation is done, and so we collect those forms and then submit payment for faculty. We pay faculty based on what the union contract says. Minnesota is a unionized state, and Inver Hills does its due diligence to respect that contract, and therefore we pay faculty $25 per credit per student to do an evaluation, the prior learning assessment evaluation. And then we do charge $75 per credit for PLA. Whereas if they were going to take a class, it's about $150 a credit. And as I mentioned, the Inver Hills policy on credit for prior learning is there's no credit limit on that, and there's no age requirements, as long as they can show that they know the information.
Does faculty only get paid for credit given or for the evaluation potential credit?
They give it for any student they have, so whether the student passes or doesn't pass, we pay them.
The $75 charge, that's just for the assessment, regardless of how many courses were assessed?
Yep, it's $75 per credit to the student. So, and because we do prior learning assessment on a course-by-course basis, yes, they're charged per course. Still a savings for them, as opposed to sitting in a traditional class. It helps them accelerate. Part of the student doing the prior learning assessment is we really want them to take that career planning and assessment course, and then we have a second 1-credit course that's advanced assessment, in which they really work on doing a course portfolio so they understand how to do that. There are other questions? Part of the reason I'm here this morning is because Inver Hills has been awarded a MAPS to Credential grant thanks to ACE and CALE. And so to kind of set the context for the next part of the morning, we thought it would be important for you to have a little bit of understanding about the particular project. The MAPS to Credentials grant is for Inver Hills to really focus on mapping for military and veterans, which, as I've worked on the project, will have a benefit for all of our adult learners and basically all of our students. So it actually is an exciting project. But some of the goals of the project are to really look at our advising services for our adult learners and veterans. And I am very excited to say that we will be hiring a full-time adult learner advisor this summer. Actually, we just posted the position, so if you know of anyone who wants to move to Minnesota, we welcome their application. But I believe part of what really helped the president and vice presidents at our college understand that we need this advisor is from the visit from the evaluator team that came to campus and said, you know, there can be some work done with working with students. So we will be hiring someone to really focus on adult learners and understand prior learning assessment processes, not only in-house, but CLEP and ACE recommendations and a variety of other means. We currently have on staff an adult learner program director, and she does a lot of recruiting, information sessions specifically for adult learners. She actually also has contact with some of our corporate sites and goes to those sites to do sessions as well. And then we have a veterans coordinator on our campus, and she is the person that knows, seems like everything and anything about veterans benefits. She is very knowledgeable and is a great part of the team in working with our veterans and military. Another one of the goals of the project is to expand prior learning assessment on our campus and train faculty, help them to be more aware of prior learning assessment. Our faculty have attended some webinars that have been hosted by ACE and CALE, which I believe has been very helpful for them in understanding the rigors of the evaluation process. In fact, I have 4 faculty who have applied to be ACE evaluators, and I'm hopeful that they will be accepted because I believe that they can then come back to our campus and share with our faculty really what truly it is like to be an evaluator and the rigors that go into that process. This past year, we had the opportunity to really focus on adult learners and prior learning assessment through 2 grants that we received from our Center for Teaching and Learning at the system office. We kicked off the year by inviting Dr. Stephen Brookfield to attend, and he really focused on adult learning theory, teaching adult learners in accelerated formats, and then we had sessions for those faculty throughout the year, and they were attached to mentors. So that really has also helped with our prior learning assessment training. We also have put together some work groups and looking at and developing roadmaps. Not only have we engaged faculty from specific disciplines in different work groups, but we have been in touch with the system office. We have an individual there who has done an excellent job with reaching out to military and helping various different campuses do more with military. In fact, if you're interested, you may like to go out to the MNSCU website, to our veterans site. It's a great resource for veterans and maybe a great resource for any of you trying to make some change in what you're doing. Something, too, that I think is very unique at Inver Hills, as I've talked to various different people, is we are a very collaborative institution, and so one of the work teams that we have is composed of academic affairs personnel and student affairs personnel. And so we've really worked collaboratively together, and this team has been comprised of our provost and vice president for academic affairs, our dean of students, people from enrollment services, myself, faculty. So I think the culture of our institution has really allowed for some growth and being leaders in different initiatives within the system and within higher education.
Okay.
I gotta stand up.
Before we move to the next section on maps, so we can actually start looking at maps and working on maps, we want you to do a table change. I know I'm being a real pain, right? So I want you to do a table change. I want you to go to a table where you don't know people or don't know them very well or haven't spent time speaking with them during the conference. So change is another expression. Have you heard change lobsters and dance? That's what we're going to do. We're going to change tables. Mix it up, and I want you to spend 5 minutes just talking to somebody else you haven't talked to at the conference and tell them a policy or practice that you'd like to put into place at your institution. Or if you're not at an institution, a policy or practice you'd like to see it in place at institutions.